Plan Commission for May 26, 2022 order. And the first item is the instruction about accessing this meeting. Abby?
Thank you. To get started here, if Mark Opitz could please
So I've got my wallet right here. And
physically present in the council chambers.
We have one guest with us tonight. It's Terrence Wall, and then the video guy, and the mayor and myself.
Thank you. For this meeting, we have 3 options for participating. We are offering the in-person option in the city council chambers. We're not allowing more than 10 people within that room, and we're requiring physical distancing. We also have the YouTube live stream option that Jeremy is recording for us. So you can go to the city's website and click on the link to the city's YouTube channel, and you can live stream the meeting.
Oops, that's me.
And then we also have the option for participating via the Zoom on a device or just by calling in to Zoom. I'm hearing a lot of feedback, and so if everybody could just please mute yourself until you're actually speaking, that would be helpful so that we don't have all the background noise. And for the plan commissioners, when you begin to speak, if you could try to remember to state your name, that will be helpful for people who are attending by phone only to be able to follow along with the conversation. We don't have a noticed public hearing tonight on the agenda this evening, but for commissioners, when you wish to speak, another option is you can raise your hand. I think you all by now know how to raise your hand in Zoom, and I'll be trying to scroll through and catch it when somebody has their blue hand raised, and then I'll let the mayor know when that happens. And I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Abby. The next item is the roll call. Mark or Abby?
Mayor Brown?
Here.
Murray? Here. Carlson?
Here.
Ramsey?
Here.
Slavish?
Here.
Tyson?
Here.
Thank you. And Hubbard is not present at the meeting tonight. He's no longer going to be serving on the Plan Commission. And he asked, he emailed us this statement and asked that it be read to the commission. I have resigned as a member of the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Commission effective May 18th, 2020, and as a result, am no longer a member of the Plan Commission. The reason for my resignation is my disappointment with the process used to determine who is reappointed and for what reason. From my perspective, the reappointment process was flawed. Criteria for making decisions was not communicated to me as an applicant, and I was no longer comfortable continuing in any appointed role. I have enjoyed my tenure with PRFC, the Plan Commission, and the Airport Master Planning Advisory Committee and the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Board. I have learned from my fellow committee and commission members and have witnessed the dedication, thoughtfulness, and well-reasoned decisions and opinions of the members of those groups. I will miss my frequent interactions with city staff. The professional, knowledgeable, and dedicated members of the City of Middleton are beyond compare. We as a city are so fortunate to have them working for all of us. Thank you for your continued service.
Thank you, Abby. So the next item is the approval of minutes.
Move approval. Sorry. Second.
Okay, so the motion by Dan Ramsey and second by Kurt Paulson. Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. So the next item is amending petition to the Wisconsin Secretary of Transportation for airport improvement aid as required by the BOA. Kurt, you have some motion to make?
I move to recommend approval of the revised resolution to the council.
I'll second it. Slavish.
Okay, any questions or comments?
This is Jen. I'm going to not vote on this item.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Any other questions or comments? So we are sending it to the city council. So, okay, if there are no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So Jennifer is abstaining and everybody else voted for it. So it goes to the city council. Thank you. So,
Mayor, we did have a request from the town of Middleton to have this, to have their letter from April 14th referenced in the meeting minutes. So I will, if you don't object to it or if anything,
okay.
Without objection, I will just record that as their request. And yeah.
So everybody heard it. So do you have any objection to Mark referencing that letter in the minutes?
This was at the request of the...
At the request of the town board chair.
Can you put the people?
Okay, if there are no objections, it will be part of the city council on plan commission minutes. So, okay, so the next item is the revision to general implementation plan and legal description. This is the Trotta building on Parmenter 3001-3101 Parmenter Street. Mark?
Yes, so this is before you tonight because for two reasons. The council in the process of approving the rezoning for the parcels to PDD as you had recommended at the end of April. But we learned about two aspects to the project that the city attorney guided me in this in the approach that we're taking, recommending that it go back to the Plan Commission to deal with the two items that had surfaced. One has to do with the legal description. They actually wanted as you recall, the southern part of the property was going to be the very southern part was going to be a parking lot to serve the Lucigen project, and that's going to be carved off by CSM. And so that is, they wanted that not to be part of the rezoning. So the legal notice has been modified to indicate that the southern portion is not part of the rezoning area, just the site of the future building moving forward. So that was one issue. And then the second is building height. As you saw in my staff comments and in your packet, there are materials for the building height increasing to 43.5 feet. I learned just this afternoon that the mechanicals, rooftop mechanicals, there will be some of those on the building, but they will not be visible from the street, but they will increase the height up to 47 feet, not the architecture, not the building itself, but in the middle of the building, there will be some mechanicals that technically increase the height by another 4 feet. That's not going to be perceptible, I'm told, which makes sense given the way the building is laid out. There's the southwest tower element that is going to be 48 feet high, and that's a small corner of the building, the southwest corner. And that element was developed as a way to help break up the mass of the building, if you will. The length of the building facing Parmenter, of course, has been a subject of great interest. And so I also sent you by email the SIP on Saturday. I sent that, the SIP submittal. That is not before you tonight, the specific implementation plan, but I wanted to show you the direction that the development team, Impact 7, has gone with the building, the architecture of the building in response to Plan Commission comments. So our staff recommendation was to, first of all, you should determine your level of comfort with adjusting the height. I felt that this was an area where the hearing was for 40 feet, but there was some flexibility, of course, when there's the hearing and some involvement with the public and feedback and guiding the evolution of the project in response to public comments. There is some discretion to make some adjustments, but it's got to be reflected properly in the zoning that pertains to the site. So that is the direction that we are seeking tonight, is from the Planning Commission, changing the legal description to reduce the aerial extent and to whether to allow the increased building height, and perhaps Mayor, the development team, Michael Carlson or others might want to address specifically what they're looking at with the building and what's causing them to consider a slight increase in the building.
So Michael, yeah, who is it? Who is this?
I don't know.
Yeah, somebody has a question, right?
I was going to also ask if the development team is speaking. Council specifically asked us to consider the issue of parking on the first floor as opposed to underground parking. But I guess before we start, we need a motion. So I would move to approve the recommend approval of the revised GIP to council with a building height up to 44 feet and the architectural element at 48 feet and the updated legal description defining the area to be rezoned.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Motion by
Kern.
And just to clarify, if I may, Commissioner Paulson, you mentioned 44 feet as opposed to, which would not include the rooftop mechanicals. So,
no, he didn't have a both. He had for the building height of 44 feet, with architectural element up to 48 feet.
okay.
Well, so the question for Mark, in our normal zoning, how do I realize this is technical, but how do we determine the height of a building? Is it the height of the highest mechanical, or is it the height of the kind of standard architectural feature that we know of as the roof? Or what do we measure?
That is a very valid point. Our ordinance under building height specifically talks about the roof measurement.
Right.
And
as it does in the B3, which.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question or your comment.
Well, if this was a traditional B3 zoning that would allow X number of feet, we would not include the mechanicals on top of a business in the B3 zone.
Right. For example, for a residential building with the gable, the ordinance is defined as the midpoint of the highest gable. Then there's definitions for mansard roofs and for flat roofs and things like that. And you are correct that rooftop mechanicals are not, it's silent on those. But I just wanted to make sure, in interest of full transparency, that people are aware that the rooftop mechanicals will project further up. And I just thought it was prudent to bring that to your attention.
Right. And the architectural element will be 48 feet. That's part of the motion.
Right, I understood that.
Yeah.
So I guess based on, now that you have pointed that out, I guess I don't object to that. I would like Abby to weigh in on that with her opinion as well, if we can separate out the rooftop mechanicals. I think the most important part of the rooftop mechanicals is to make sure that they are screened, properly screened, or adequately set back so that they're not readily visible from adjoining properties or the street. That is our concern. In terms of how height is measured, I agree with you that the ordinance pertains to the roof, the architectural element and not the mechanical. So you're correct.
So Abby, do you want to add something?
Just that I agree, if we follow the way that we would normally measure height by the typical zoning classifications, it would be to the roof line and not to the building mechanicals. Just to add to two things, Commissioner Tyson has her hand raised, and I'm not sure if you can see that, Mayor, now that I'm not in the council chambers. And then the second thing is I just had something else to add before any action is taken.
No, I didn't. So Kitty?
My proposal is that we separate those two recommendations into two pieces. One being the building height and the other one being the 42 feet of land at the south end that we're giving to Lucigen, because I would like to vote for one and not the other.
Okay, that's 72 feet. So Kurt, is that okay you to just make, these are two separate things. So I think one is a CSM, other is
Well,
just a building height.
I wouldn't consider that a friendly amendment because the CSM before us, the makes clear that the rezoning that we are undertaking with this GIP is only on lot 1. So you'd have to update the legal description defining the area to be rezoned. Otherwise, the CSM doesn't make any sense. So I think the motion as the staff wrote it is cleaner because it updates the legal description of the parcel and it makes clear that we're only rezoning lot 1 of the CSM.
Does that make sense to you,
Because
Kitty? I mean,
No, I don't understand why it can't just be two proposals, Kurt.
so you want to,
Well,
What
because
she's essentially asking, go ahead, sir.
you can make a substitute motion. I mean, that's,
Well, I think what she's asking is to divide the question, to split the question since there's
Okay.
2 parts to it. That's what she's asking.
yeah, I mean, I understand what she's asking. And I think it's a valid question. I don't think there's any issue there. So it's a very simple thing to do, so.
okay, that's fine with me.
So Kurt, how you, since you made the motion, are we focusing first on the building height or the?
Yes.
legal
Yes, to
description or the
recommend-
mayor's substitute? Okay.
To recommend
Okay, so let's go with the building.
The revised GIP to allow a building height up to 44 feet with the architectural element at 48 feet.
Okay, so let's discuss that one. Any questions or concerns on that one? Okay, all those in favor of those motions say aye.
Oh, hold on a second, sorry.
Uh,
I just wanted to mention one more thing in full transparency before the commission takes action. And that is that our TIF team, Mike, Phil, and I have been separately working with the applicant on the possibility for some TIF assistance for this development. It has recently come up as an option that instead the developer may decide to apply for tax exemption through the state statute that allows tax exempt status for benevolent housing purposes. We don't know at this point in time which route will be, decided upon. And normally I would not feel that tax exemption is a criteria that should be considered when discussing a rezoning. But I did want to draw your attention to some language in the GIP section of the zoning ordinance that talks about the criteria for approval of a GIP. And specifically, it mentions under the character and intensity of land use section, item C, that the development would not adversely affect the anticipated provision of school or municipal services. And under section 2, it talks about economic feasibility and impact, and talks about the proponents of PDD shall provide evidence satisfactory to the Plan Commission that the project will not adversely affect the economic prosperity of the city or the values of surrounding properties. From my own staff opinion, I don't think either of these criteria are met by going with the tax exemption, but with full transparency, I just wanted to make sure that you had all of the information while you were making your decision on the zoning.
So why do you think that it won't have that any impact when you won't be getting any taxes? So that would have an impact and you will be still providing the services. I would think it will have a huge impact. Would it not?
It's possible that the city could negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes. It's possible that the developer would decide not to go the tax exempt route and work out the TIF agreement. It's unlikely that this development would have a significant impact on schools because what we have seen from other multifamily housing is that they don't generate the number of students per unit that we see in a single family home. And then as far as economic prosperity of the city, I think that this project looks beautiful. This development would increase surrounding property values and would have an overall net positive impact on TIF 5 because it's a prime redevelopment area, and having this sort of activity, I think, will spur additional economic growth in the area and more redevelopment and higher property values in the area. Even if this property does go the tax exempt route, I still think that it'll have a positive economic impact on the TIF district overall.
So, but we are not approving this as a tax, what you said as a part of it. It's just we are approving only the building height change at this time, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right, right.
Okay, any questions or comments on just the building height? Okay, so all those in favor of,
Sorry, Mayor, this is Murray. One of the council members asked that we think about parking with regards to the building. And I think that might go along with this item a little bit in terms of the height.
okay,
I know that we had talked about that requirement before, Abby and Mark, with regards to this building. And at this point, what are the parking ratios for the building and with the proposed number of units?
I'm going to have to go grab my staff report quickly. Well, here, I can look it up on the screen. I'll get back to you in a moment.
I can simply scroll to it.
okay, okay, Abby, go ahead.
Well, can we ask Michael Carlson to address the parking issue?
Yeah, hi, this is Michael. I'm here. I'd be glad to speak to that. I guess I'll reiterate some of the points that I provided in that letter to both to the commission and to the council. I think we're looking at other precedent with the parking. There are at least 3 projects essentially within a stone's throw of our site that have had underground parking, including the Meadow Ridge Apartments on Lisa Lane, the Oak Ridge Senior on Senior Development on Lisa Lane, and then also the new Dwell project by the Trista Group has underground parking proposed and is currently being built. We think it provides the best balance of attaining site density, providing as much space available for green space, and also, I'd say as critically, really constraining the overall envelope of this building. We do not want to go higher, quite frankly. The zoning, as I understand it, would allow us to go up to 60 feet. We feel like, given the context of this site, that's overly massive of a building. That strikes us as too tall. That would add, a first floor parking would add a minimum of 10 additional feet to the overall building height. And so now we're pushing up against that 60-foot envelope, and that just doesn't really feel right from a design standpoint or a context standpoint. We also think that it's critical that the first floor meaningfully relate and provide opportunities for people to meaningfully relate with the street, such that there's actually eyes on the street and people out on their balconies, just being able to interact with the street. And, I know that the length of the building has been a concern to commission members. I would suggest that concern would be amplified even more by having, in a sense, a silent floor at ground level that provides no opportunity for engagement, no opportunity for anyone hanging out at the street level and any sort of, casual engagement with the street. So that was an option that we had contemplated early on in the design process, but I think the reasons in this particular site, in this particular context for this building vastly outweigh the advantages of having a ground floor fully exposed, or above ground parking structure and adding another above ground floor to the building.
So, Mark, you had done some survey or study that the buildings around here which had the underground parking. Do you want to share it?
Yeah. So I have the staff report pulled up, and I think Abby is trying to display what I have on my screen.
I stopped sharing my screen, Mark, so you just need to go click on the green button with the up arrow that says share screen, and you should be able to share yours.
Sorry, I haven't done that before. Where's that green button?
Yeah, it's right next to, close to video.
On your bottom bar, with the mute and the stop video and everything, right in the center, there should be a green button with an up arrow that says share screen. And if you just click on that and then a window will pop up and you'll click on screen.
Yeah, I think what's that? Yeah, I was within Zoom, but I didn't see it there.
Yeah, it's right in the middle, right on the left of the participants.
It says I'm signed out of Zoom. Do you see me right now, Abby?
Yes.
All right, I had a message saying I was signed out of Zoom.
Okay, anyway, so you want to.
What you could do is go to the meeting packet that's in the April, it's in the April 28th. That's where I found it. I don't see a share screen button here. And, oh, here we go. Wait. No, that's a different, no, that's a different application. Sorry about that, folks. We are new to trying, we're reversing some roles here today, and I'm, well, kind of.
Okay, Abby, do you have it, or you want to share it?
Yes, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Abby. It's on page 10 of that staff report. So I'll start talking while you bring it up. So the developer's proposing 97 underground parking stalls and 60 surface stalls, which represents a ratio of 1.27 stalls per unit. Based on the proposed mix of units, the proposed parking ratio would result in 57 fewer parking stalls than identified in the city's increasingly outdated parking standards. However, the ratio exceeds what the city has approved for several recent multifamily projects. Both University Flats and the Addy provide roughly a 1.1 parking or a 1-to-1 parking ratio. Developers' approach to off-street parking seems reasonable given demographic and technological trends, reasonably good transit service, and the continued increase in use of ride-hailing services and micro-mobility devices. So, and the site plan concept has a great chance of complying fully with the parking design guidelines in the Parmenter neighborhood plan. So that's what I had written, Jen. Do you have any other questions beyond that? I can be happy to try and answer them.
No, I think that addresses my concern about the amount, or just trying to understand what is being provided in the plan. And then in terms of flooding and things like that, do any of you there at the city remember if this area had any flooding during 2018?
I know Donna Drive did by the police department, but this area was reconstructed when Highway 12 was rerouted. I'm not aware of any specific flooding issues on Parmenter Street itself. And the adjoining parcels, obviously anything they do is going to have a stormwater plan that's going to properly address the stormwater that runs off, or that falls onto the site, and how to deal with that. I would imagine, and I again defer to the development team, I'm sure that they will find a way to construct the entrance so that it's not, collecting rainwater from around the site and having it cascade into the garage. I mean, I'm sure that's not being designed that way. So I would defer to them to answer how they're specifically make sure they don't have flooding in their basement, in their garage.
So Mark, Mike Carlson also mentioned, and at staff meeting you were mentioning that there are some of the other buildings in the vicinity which have the underground parking. Is there underground parking in that Parmenter Circle?
Yeah, Parmenter Circle has underground parking, both buildings. So that's, a quarter mile to the south. The police department has underground parking. And Meadow
Ridge?
I'm sure they have, I didn't review that project originally, but
Meadow Ridge and Oak Ridge both have underground parking, yes.
I was sure of that too. I just couldn't picture where the garage doors are, but yeah, I'm sure they do.
Okay, so how about
did they have flooding in 2018?
I haven't spoken to the management at any of these places, but I'm not aware that they did. My building, I happened to live in an apartment at the time, downtown Middleton, and we had a foot of water or so, but that was because the power went out and the sump pump failed. And that's an older building, so, I would imagine that there's arrangements made. Again, I would defer to the development team for how to respond to that.
Okay, any questions either about the height or about the parking?
Mr. Mayor, Dan Ramsey, I'd just like to say that as far as the parking is concerned, I really would not like to, this building is a very large mass, and I'm still uncomfortable with the overall length of it. To go up another story, I just think that at that point, this is way overbuilt for the area. So I'm certainly not in favor of anything that's going to create more or less of this story.
I don't think any of us were talking about going up another story. We were talking about a four-story building with parking above the ground. Period.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Kitty. So any other questions or comments? Okay, so the motion is for the height of the building. All those in favor of this motion to increase the building height up to 44 feet, with the architectural feature up to 48 feet, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Now let's go to the CSM amendment. So Kurt, you or somebody want to make a motion?
Well, Kitty wanted us to separate the question. So the second question then is on updating the legal description defining the area to be rezoned, which has to be part of the GIP because it's a rezoning request. So it has to be specific to a parcel. So I guess if we need a motion, I'll motion to approve to recommend to the council the updated legal description defining the area to be rezoned.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Is that Dan?
Ramsey.
Oh, yeah, Dan Ramsey. I apologize, Dan. Yeah, yes, Dan Ramsey. So, okay, any questions or comments on that part?
Yeah, actually, that's the part I have a lot of concern about, and that is it's been brought up that Lucigen needs more parking. Yes, but my concern is maybe more long term. There are two aspects to my concern. Number one is if we give that chunk, that 72 feet by, I don't know, 200 feet of land to Lucigen for parking, then clearly there's not going to be any ability to do anything more creative in terms of getting people not focused on the highway in terms of the design. You wouldn't have enough land to rotate the buildings anymore, which is something that we had proposed previously. I know nobody else seems to think that's important, and I understand that. The second part of my concern is the site that Lucigen has right now is totally open in my mind to questioning as to the compatibility of that with all the higher density residential around it, and what we're thinking long term for Lucigen. I know we love Lucigen; they're a great company, but when you look at it online, you see the kinds of cells they're producing and the kinds of they actually even talk about E. coli being produced. I don't think that that's necessarily the right location for Lucigen in our town, especially since it's a pharmaceutical laboratory and it went into a building that I was shopping for furniture in a few years ago. It's a very questionable site to be trying to make permanent long term. I hope Lucigen would consider building or relocating to a building in another part of the city, as opposed to being in this area where we're trying to pack a lot of residential. My concern is we just do something where we're committing very quickly to adding more land to a situation where we've got a building that's it wasn't built initially anyway. I don't know if it got rebuilt to accommodate a lab.
Well, I have been in the building. It's all remodeled, and and if you were to go right across the street, Carlson is the very first technology company to establish in Middleton in 1950 or in maybe around 1960. So, and so yeah, their buildings, they remodel, and I think the Lucigen is a great company, but I can see you're having one of the top-notch biotechnology company close to housing there, but as you know, they're not dealing directly with E. coli. They are dealing with all gene splicing, and they're dealing with the DNA. Of course, they will grow some of the microbial stuff to isolate the DNA, but that's what they're doing. And you have been involved in designing so many of the labs. I know you have a good feeling and knowledge about it. So, yeah, well, but that's also for the Lucigen to decide, though. I mean, it's not for us to decide what they want to do. Is any other questions or comments? Kitty, does that, I know you have a very good point. We could actually have a biotechnology corridor there, but I guess no one else has come there. I would also hope that close to Gilson's, we could get some more technology company. We did talk to Gilson's, but it didn't happen, so. Okay, any other questions or comments? So,
I have a question. This is Marie. Access to that parking is I see here from the plans, it looks like they will still be connected to the proposed site of the apartments. Is that still kind of the agreement on that?
Hi, this is Michael from Impact 7. Yes, we were trying to make use of an existing curb cut there to provide access both to our site and to their site to simplify or reduce the number of curb cuts along the street. And it just seemed like the cleanest arrangement that helped both of us accomplish what we were looking for there.
Okay, thank you.
is there anybody here, Mike, who could comment on the Lucigen or any of those things, or anyone from Lucigen? Okay. So any other questions or comments? Mike, well, Mark, you want to read the motion?
So the motion from Carlson, seconded by Ramsey, is to to approve a revised legal description as part of the GIP and recommend approval to the council. So, and that was, here's the ordinance that was in, well, I can't control the, Abby's controlling the screen, but I'm displaying here in the council chambers the ordinance itself. So as you can see, the area parcels are still defined, but then they have a tiny little part that's been removed. The part highlighted, you're accepting the south 72 feet. So that's the motion, is to remove that from
72 feet. So, okay. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Me? No.
Okay. Okay, so motion passes. Kitty is opposed.
And for the record, Kitty, did you vote in favor of the previous motion or not? I think
Yes,
the mayor.
yes, he voted in favor.
Okay.
So.
All right, just want to make sure we heard you.
Okay, so also we already, this was a separate, so we already covered this item number 3.
No, the CSM is different.
Okay, okay, all right. Okay, certified survey map 2905 3001 3003 3101 Parmenter Street and Trotta properties. So this is the certified survey map for these properties. So
what this is very straightforward. They are taking the 4 parcels, I think, that were there, and combining them into 2 parcels, lot 1 and lot 2, and that's the purpose of the CSM. So the lot line would be between the future Trotta and the parking area for serving Lucigen. And so the lot 2 would be also including the existing Lucigen site. So it's 5 parcels that it's reconfigured.
okay, so need a motion
This is Ramsey. I move approval contingent on resolution of engineering staff comments.
This is
Okay,
Paulson, I'll
need a-
second.
Okay. Motion by Ramsey, second by Paulson. Questions or comments now? Any questions or comments?
And
Seems
just to
pretty
be clear,
straightforward.
Mark, this parcel will remain zoned B3 and it meets the dimensional standards of a B3 lot?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. So lot 1 will be zoned PDD as recommended, as approved and recommended by the Plan Commission. Lot 2 will retain its B3 zoning. And it meets our minimum standards for B3 zone.
Any further questions, comments, or clarifications? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve this CSM, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
No?
Okay, so Kitty is opposed, so. All right, we are on to next item, specific implementation plan for Newcomb development, 1312 John Q. Hemmons Drive. So I did notice then in the staff comments, they mentioned 1313 John Q. Hemmons Drive, but that's just a small thing, so.
Oh,
It's a
Abby has
1312.
the staff comments here, so she can speak.
Oh, well, that's okay.
Speak to this.
Not a big thing, it's just a typing thing, so. Okay, so, SIP for Newcomb development, 1312 John Q. Hemmons Drive. So who's going to, Abby?
Yes.
Who is going to explain? All right, go ahead.
Yep, so this is another project that came before the Plan Commission previously for concept review. You'll probably recall that they were at the time looking at an office and a residential component for this site. At this point in time, they would like to go ahead and proceed with just the office use. They are responding to a competitive RFP, request for proposals process, and they'd like to get the zoning in place as quickly as possible to help their chances of being able to be successful in the RFP. If the reason that we don't have this on the agenda as a GIP amendment, as was previously discussed, is because this actually fits really well within the existing zoning requirements, and I attached the GIP zoning document. If they decide to proceed with the residential component, they would need to get a GIP amendment for that because residential was not a permitted use in that Greenway Center area GIP. There is one thing in particular, well, there are two engineering staff comments that I called out in my staff report that will need to be addressed by the commission. I think that they are both policy items that you should weigh in on. And then there's also one other item I just wanted to call your attention to, and that is that the rear setback currently is proposed as 15 feet. The GIP required 20 feet on the rear setback. My feeling is that this is reasonably consistent with the GIP. If this were a height issue rather than a setback issue, we have very clear direction from our city attorney that that would require a GIP amendment. This is simply reducing the rear setback by 5 feet, and it's not a height issue. It's a rear setback issue. I did reach out to the property owner behind the site, and that's Jeff Kramer. He owns the new Chartwell building, and we talked with Chartwell, and we also talked with Jeff Kramer, and he had some questions about the way that the retaining wall that's being proposed, it's about 5 feet off the property line on the rear, and he wanted to know the type of construction, and he had some other questions that he raised in a call with me this morning. I've talked with Kirk Keller, who's the architect for this project, and I think that these are issues that can be worked out between the two parties. Jeff Kramer, who owns the Chartwell property, was very complimentary on the architecture of the building and thinks it's going to be a great addition to the area. His primary concern was just whether the construction of that retaining wall would in any way impact his bioretention area or disturb it. And from what I've learned from Kirk Keller, and he can address this if there are any other questions about it, but he very much is aware of the bioretention area. He has practices that he's recommending be put in place to ensure that that area is not disturbed. The other item is that there's no landscaping that's being proposed on the rear at this point in time, but we would recommend that the applicant add some additional landscaping in that 5-foot stretch. And I think that would make Jeff Kramer very happy too, because that way if the cars are visible within the ramp, that would help to screen that from the Chartwell property. We have not yet seen elevations for the ramp, so those were not included in your packet, and that will need to come forward as a future SIP modification for design review. Once they, if they are able to get this proposal approved and they work with the applicant on what the ramp construction will look like, we will need to see that. So in addition to what was included in the staff comments, I'm displaying on my screen here some additional items. So we want resolution of the 2 engineering staff review comments, resolution of the rear setback proposal at 15 feet as reasonably consistent with the GIP. And then our revised recommendation is approval of the SIP to the Common Council contingent on the stormwater management plan, a future SIP modification for design review approval of the parking ramp elevations, and additional landscaping along the west property line to screen the parking structure from nearby properties. Commissioner Paulson has his hand raised. Mayor Bragg.
Kurt?
So with regard to the issue of access management and driveways, what you're calling the rear of the property is the west side of the property, right? Because the frontage is on John Q. Hammond's. It's a corner lot, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they propose to eliminate the current curb cut that is right near Holiday Avenue on the north side of the John Q. Hammond side of the property, correct?
Hold on, let me pull up the site plan. Oops, I had it that it was on page 64. Hold on a second.
I see that on the site plan of I guess the some of the engineering.
Sorry, it is on page 64. I just was zoomed in. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're proposing 3 curb cuts, 1 on John Q. Hammond's and then 2 off of Holiday Avenue. They've indicated that they need this eastern one on Holiday Avenue to access the first level of parking, and then the upper deck access at this entrance.
The curb cut on John Q. Hammond's is already there, so that makes sense to keep that there. But in terms of the curb cut off of Holiday Avenue on the west side, is there any way they could do a shared driveway with the Chartwell building? That's because that looks like those 2 driveways are within, by my reading, about 10 or 15 feet of each other. Is that correct?
It's probably a little bit more than that because these are probably 18-foot deep stalls, and so it's probably like 36 to 40 feet in separation, at least according to this. Let's see.
Well, then I guess as a policy issue, I'm fine with the 2 curb cuts on Holiday Avenue. But if there's any way they can do kind of reconfigure that so that there's just 1 with the Chartwell building, they may not be able to do that, because then people who want to go to that building might feel they can just go park in the ramp.
I know that Chartwell, when Chartwell came with their expansion, they wanted this for trucks to exit out of. So like they have big delivery trucks that are coming in and swinging around, and then they exit out this way. So I don't know if they would be open to it, but it's worth asking Jeff Kramer about that.
Yeah, if they're running trucks, probably not then. So, and then the 15 feet setback that you're talking about, that's the one on the west side.
Correct. Yep.
And that would, yeah, so a reduced setback like that has to be landscaped. So I support that. Those are my questions, sorry.
So Abby, this hasn't gone to the Public Works yet, or it has?
No, this doesn't require any Public Works Committee action. In some cases, a project like this would go to Public Works with a TIA or a traffic impact analysis, but that's triggered by a rezoning, and this is not a GIP rezoning. This is simply an SIP. The Public Works staff did provide comments, so, and those are on
I was just looking at those two driveways there on Holiday Drive. If Public Works were to prove that, will be interesting. So anyway, so anything else which you want to add? My question was that this is a very beautiful building, and I think this Corona pandemic is affecting the office building use. So I just hope that, you know, the Newcomb, I mean, this is a clearly beautiful building the way it's designed, that they would not have any problem renting it or leasing it. So that would be my concern. So I don't know how much need or demand is there for the office space right now. So
yeah,
I'm sure they did their market analysis.
This building unless they're successful with their proposal. They, you know, they would enter into a long-term lease with the entity that has the RFP out. They wouldn't build a building like this on spec. That would be unheard of in this environment.
Okay, right. So anyway, like, yeah, I mean, it looks great. So the way it's designed. So any other questions or comments before you make a motion? So
Abby, could I speak to the access quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Brett.
Yeah, hi, everybody. This is Brett Newcomb. I just want to speak to Kurt's comments about the access that is to the west near Chartwell's parking lot. That access point is actually allowing cars to enter to the top of the parking structure. And that parking structure is only designed to hold the weight of cars, not the weight of fire trucks or heavy vehicles. And we have built these parking structures where we put up like a headache bar at the entrance to keep UPS and delivery trucks and fire trucks off. And believe it or not, within year one, those trucks will plow through the headache bar onto the parking structure. So I'm very, very, very hesitant to have a shared driveway that accesses the top of the parking structure, simply because we just lose a lot of control about who's up there. And it also just makes it a really messy development when you try to get somebody else to agree and share and all that stuff. So I would hope that this would be approved as is and allow us to have the two drives off of Holiday, even though that's driveway's kind of close. Because we are eliminating one access point off of the real busy street, which is John Q. Hammond's, and we're sliding them off to the street that really is not busy whatsoever, Holiday. And then they have two ways out, you know, you can go
right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Makes sense, Brett. So okay, so somebody ready to make a motion?
Sure, I will recommend approval of the SIP to the Common Council, contingent on approval of a stormwater plan, future SIP modification for design review, approval of parking ramp elevations, and requiring landscaping along the west property line to screen the parking structure from nearby properties.
And the immediate comment? Okay.
Was that Kitty?
Yeah, that was Kitty Tyson.
Yeah.
That was Kitty Tyson, right?
Right.
All right.
And just to say, if we could get a lot of the parking lots around there to deck their parking, we could get a lot more floor area ratio of commercial and office space in that area. But so this is a good emphasis on infill development because we reduced parking requirements and opened up another lot for development.
And just to clarify on the motion and the second, is that intended to convey approval of the 3 drive points and the issue with the the sidewalk width. I think that was the other issue that the engineering staff had raised.
So that was 7.5
Well-
feet.
Oh, sure, that's, yeah.
Yes.
And then the landscaping as well, right? You said
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
more landscaping on.
The back,
That
yeah.
was in the staff recommendation.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments now?
Just one comment, and that is I drove to the site today to look at it, and I'm impressed with the thoughtfulness that went into the site planning, given the fact that it's up a little bit raised. It's not down in a valley, but they still have detention basins and respect the detention basin behind to the west of the complex, I believe. And
Yep.
yep, I'm impressed.
Yeah. So. All right. That's good, Kitty. So any other questions or comments? I'm impressed too, by the way. So any other questions or comments? Okay. So you want to read the motion?
Not particularly. As Kurt said it really fast, I was just going to grab it off the video later, but if you'd like me to, maybe Kurt, you can help me out.
I was just reading off of Abby's screen.
Well, yeah, but then we added the access, so 3 access points, the sidewalk width, and the issue there is to
No.
allow the 7.5
Yeah.
feet. And then you added to Abby's recommendation, you added the landscaping on the berm.
At the back.
On the
Yeah.
west side of the property. Yeah.
Right.
That is on Abby's screen.
Which I don't have in front of me right now, so, okay. Okay.
Okay. Is that motion clear to everyone?
Yes.
It is the staff recommendation plus few other things.
Abby, I'm just going to
Okay.
say that I'm happy to give the job back of displaying things on the screen.
Okay. Approval of the stormwater plan, your SIP modifications. So it's on the screen, so you can see it, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So the motion as you see it here, all those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion is unanimous. Okay, all right, we are on the next item, the concept discussion to replace townhomes with apartments, Conservancy Bend Residences, LLC 24132421 Parmenter Street. Who's going to take it?
I can.
Okay, Abby.
You all are probably pretty familiar with the Conservancy Bend development, just east of the Parmenter Street roundabout. This development came about through a competitive RFP process that the city worked on, and this all took place last year. There were 2 proposals that the city received. The city selected the proposal from T-Wall, which was a combination of multifamily housing. If I'm remembering correctly, it's 84 units, along with 3 separate buildings for a total of 19 owner-occupied townhomes. My recollection of the Plan Commission and the council's discussions, and certainly within the council's recommendation, was that several elected officials found that owner-occupied component to be a really key and attractive part of the proposal, and part of the reason that that proposal was selected over the competitors. Now, the city has sold the properties. We do not own those properties anymore, and the city did receive full asking price for those properties. We were repaid the full amount that we paid for those properties, which, if I'm remembering correctly, was $2.62 million. So now, with the coronavirus and things are rapidly changing in the housing market, T-Wall had reached out and asked, would it be possible to convert those townhomes instead to an additional apartment building And of course, we would need to go through the whole process to do that. That would be a GIP rezoning. There would probably be a renegotiation of the TIF agreement that the city has in place for this project. But before we go through that whole discussion, I thought it made more sense to start at the concept level and allow the developer an opportunity to speak to you and have a discussion with the Plan Commission. And I would also like for that concept discussion to take place at the council, because the council was so involved with the project initially.
Thank you, Abby. So, Terence is here. Is that mic usable or not? So go ahead and tell us, why do you want to do it? And
Mayor, can I ask a question while Terrence is getting ready?
yes, go ahead.
Just to clarify, Terrence, you're requesting 55 units, and it's a 3-story building?
Let me run through the whole thing. So we're not asking for any action tonight. I'm really looking to get your feedback and your input, and we'll do whatever you'd like. We're not indifferent at this point, but we have run into a challenge with COVID. I was first going to do a couple introductory things and an update. First of all, I just want to say we've had no parking problems for the last 2 months downtown. That's for you, Kurt. No. But the update is that we have restarted construction on the conservative and multifamily building. We had stopped it during the early March when COVID came out and the governor's order came out, and states and cities started shutting down, stopping construction in other locations. So we couldn't take the risk of starting and then stopping. So we had done the demolition, so we were at a good point of just holding until we see what happens here. So we were able to restart construction this past week. Separately on Middleton Center Phase 3, we hope to restart construction by June 1st. So the multifamily buildings will be moving forward. We had loan commitments for those already signed and the loans were closed. Now, the comment that was earlier tonight was, building anything spec in this environment is unheard of, and I would agree with that. That building something spec is very difficult in this environment, even if you have a loan commitment. So where's the update where's the question on townhomes? So we had a loan commitment signed with a lender back in December, and we were moving forward. We've obviously invested a lot of money and capital into the townhomes. The plans are drawn, the architect is ready to move forward, et cetera. The bank then went into a merger with another bank. So everything was delayed. Things get put on hold when banks go into mergers and combine with other banks. Our loan officer also retired, so we lost him and have a new loan officer who's just now getting up to speed. That loan commitment expired during that merger time period. Then COVID came along, and we have not been able to re-secure an extension or get that loan commitment back. Banks generally are extremely nervous right now. We've had different bankers tell us that they are swamped with PPP loans. They're swamped with dealing with hundreds of borrowers who are in financial trouble and who are just swamping them and their staff time. And on top of that, their loan officers are working from home, which makes communication much more difficult with their loan committees and their management team, et cetera. We've talked to numerous banks. So we also talked to the bank that is doing the loan on the multifamily building. They will not make a loan on a speculative for sale product at this time. Now, my prior history or experience in this situation has been with this kind of recession is that lending takes about 6 to 12 months to free up again and kind of return back to normal, or as close to normal as possible. So we're just at the start of this process, and I expect it'll take 6 to 12 months for banking and lending to kind of turn around, you know, and maybe open up the spigot again for lending on a for sale product. So right now, we do not have a loan commitment on the townhome construction. If we were able to secure one, there would be no question that they would require pre-sales, and pre-sales take many months to secure. Also the timing is that we either need to start construction here in June or we need to wait a year, because we want to deliver in the February to May timetable, because that's the selling season. The prime selling season is February to about July, and we want to deliver somewhere, you know, February, March, April, May. We absolutely cannot be delivering this outside of that window. So if we miss June here for starting the townhomes, then we will wait a year and then try to secure a loan commitment prior to that time and start next spring for delivery in the spring 2022. So we're not opposed to proceeding with the townhomes. I just want to be transparent with you and upfront that if that's what continue with, then we'll probably be constructing those next spring if and when we get a loan commitment, and depending on the pre-sale requirement, which wasn't an issue previously to this whole economic crisis. Just to give you an idea of what's going on in the economy, I'm on the Wisconsin Roundtable, Economic Roundtable for the Chicago Federal Reserve Bank as one of the members of their Economic Roundtable for Wisconsin, advising them. And this economy, compared to the Great Recession, it took about 2 years for the economy to go down in the Great Recession, and it went down to what we call a -4, just on the scale that they have. So -4 took 2 years. This recession, the economy went down to -12 in 2 weeks. So it went down 3 times in a matter of just 2 weeks, 2 years. So that's the scale of this. This is on the scale of the Great Depression, except much faster than the Great Depression also. But those numbers compared to the Great Recession, which was 2008. So banks have kind of, they've become very conservative. And a for sale product like this requires that a bank make loans to the buyers of those townhomes. Again, they're not condominiums, which is good. They're fee simple interest. But Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have also changed. They've tightened up and they've changed. So money is cheaper, but it's not available, right now. That's what happens. Interest rates are low, but good luck getting the money. Because Fannie and Freddie have also tightened up their requirements. Give you an example, we are in the process of getting 3 refinancing done on 3 different apartment projects. All of that has been put on hold by Fannie and Freddie because they now 9 months of interest reserves being put up in cash in a cash account, and that's just financially not possible with any refinancing. You don't have enough proceeds to then pay off the construction loan. So, Fannie and Freddie can say that they're out there making loans, but the truth is they're not. They're tightened up their requirements, and they're scared also now. So we just need to let things free up. And so we thought, okay, one option is to still do the townhomes, but we're probably going to waiting a year. The second option would be to, brainstorm with you and look at, converting those to an apartment building. Same height, 3 stories. We estimated approximately 55 units, an L-shaped building. And I'm not opposed to continuing to do the townhomes. I just want to be very upfront with you about what the circumstances and the timetable for that will be. I know I can get an apartment loan right now from the same lenders doing the first building, and the second building would be, obviously, we would delay that construction until October and deliver that in the spring of 2022. So it would be a little bit different timetable. So that's where we're at right now, and I appreciate your taking the time to.
Thank you, Terrence. I have a question for you. I thought to begin with, you were going to do this in 2 phases, the apartment first and then the townhomes. So that wasn't your plan even to begin with?
No, that is our plan. The ideal thing for us to do with the townhomes is to build that starting approximately 30 days after the start of the construction of the multifamily building, because that means the subcontractors, take for example the plumber. When the plumber's done in the apartment building, then they just roll right into doing the townhomes right after that. So that's the perfect situation. It's the most economical. We can use the same superintendent on the job to manage both property, both construction jobs at the same time. If the townhomes are done separately, we have to pay for a superintendent to come back and be on that site, and that's more expensive. We're not able to split that cost between the two projects. So ideally, yes, we would like to do the townhomes and start those no later than June 30th. That would be ideal from a construction cost perspective. We don't want to delay, but the reality is that there's no loans available right this very moment.
So was that your plan right to begin with? I might be mistaken, but I thought.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Terrence?
Yeah, Mayor, this is Mike Slavish. Terrence, I mean, I had just a couple of questions. Certainly I'm sure we all recognize that banks are a bit skittish right now, just because the future, even in the near term, is a bit uncertain. But that being said, and if you're reading some of the other reports, nationally, and I believe this applies to Dane County as well, there seems to be a real uptick in demand for sale housing, and the fact that there probably isn't a lot of product that's going to be coming to market, anytime soon. We would think that would continue to kind of drive up that demand, and maybe it'll take, your point earlier, maybe it'll take 4, 6, 12 months to kind of play out before we can really confirm that. But abandoning the town concept at this point so quickly into this crisis might be a bit premature, but that would be my thoughts.
Yeah, there could be, and I would agree with you that I think there will be pent-up demand, because there are home sellers that are holding their homes off the market. And also, if you look recently, there was 2 articles in the Wall Street Journal just in the last 2 weeks. There was a very, very significant drop-off in April in home sales. Just huge drop-off.
16 or 17%.
Yeah, massive. In Fishers Bay, we're not getting people to show up at open houses. They don't want to come and, interact. Right? They want to stay away from other people.
Yep.
We end up just not having open houses we're just restarting that. At the same time, Mike, you're right. Out of the blue during this whole time, I got a cash offer on my house, over on the other side of the lake, and sold that in 2 weeks. So, it's a weird environment. But that was a cash offer. The buyer wasn't getting financing, and he wanted to close within 2 weeks.
Twice the asking price. Wow, that's quite a deal, huh?
We were very happy about that, but at the same time, there is very little product on the market. So if something does come on the market, I'm sure there are buyers for it. But there are also buyers who can't get their. I know I've got 3 sales lots pending at Fishers Bay, and every single month goes by, they get delayed. I have to give an extension because the buyers can't get their lenders to put them as a priority. They keep getting pushed back. Appraisals are taking longer. The banks are busy with their PPP and their problem loans, and they aren't dealing with a new business, which is really frustrating to us because we'd like to get those sales closed.
Yep. Any more input for Terrence?
At this point, this is Dan Ramsey. At this point, I agree with Mike. I think it's way premature to throw in the towel on the townhouses. I can speak from the council's perspective. When we originally started talking about this, one of the most important things to the council, and certainly to me, was the fact that we were going to have some owner-occupied units there. We thought the location was good for it. We thought that that was something that we deemed important. The other thing that we deemed important and that we negotiated with and got a commitment for was for there to be a segment of those that were more affordable. And that was very important. When the negotiation came along, I said that I wouldn't support any project that didn't include an owner-occupied component. And while I understand that the market has changed and things have gotten difficult, I stand by that still, because I think that we have done a very good job of creating multifamily. We're not doing such a good job of creating owner occupied. In this past mayor's race, I think that all three people that ran supported the idea that we needed to try to have more owner occupied opportunities. So at this point, I am not at all in favor of turning in the townhomes for a 55-unit apartment building.
Okay, more input, and I agree absolutely with Dan. So I think there's a huge demand for, owner occupied. And when I go around, people are asking want a condominium or townhome. So more thoughts. Okay.
So,
Yes.
yeah, I want to echo what Dan said. And Terrence, when we talked earlier, I did say you'd probably have a hard time getting it past council at this early stage because of the fact that many supported the owner-occupied concept. But I think the other issue to ask about is how would the increment and the valuation be different on a 55-unit multifamily as opposed to 17 townhouses? Do you have any idea of that?
Yeah, we actually looked at the TIF numbers. They were roughly the same. I don't remember the exact numbers. They weren't exactly the same. Now, my concern also is that if we're forced to wait a year due to the lending environment, that we're going to lose a year of the TIF, So that is a big concern. But, getting your feedback, by the way, I wasn't really asking for or thinking about going to council. I just want to get the members of the Plan Commission's input on this. We're going to keep trying, to get the loan. We're trying other banks, and we're going to send out some more loan packages. We'll keep moving on this. I really, it's probably a 10% chance that we start the townhome construction before June 30th, in which case then we will wait till next spring, to start it. It takes about 9 to 10 months to build them. And we'll deliver those in the spring, February through May of 2022. That will increase our costs, of course, because of the, separating the construction, which is unfortunate. I don't want to do that. And we'll lose some TIF doing that. But, I'm still committed to it, and we'll try everything we can to get a loan. But I just wanted to be upfront, transparent with you, because you may not see the construction going on. You're going to ask questions. I just want to be giving you an update as to where things are at. We'll keep trying, and we'll keep at it. And if it's not this year, it'll be next year. But I do think I agree with you. There's a need for more for sale product in downtown Middleton.
Yeah.
So if there's any other questions, otherwise we'll just keep plugging away.
Okay. Any more questions or comments or input for Terrence before he moves to the next item?
Sure, this is Jen. I just wondered if you might consider condos or something less so-called townhome might be, I guess where I'm going with my comment is I think that I could support maybe not having townhomes, but I do agree with the comment about owner occupancy and having probably a decent ratio there. So where I'm going with it is have you considered, or could you, make a consideration for maybe not so much a townhome, but a condo that might not be, quite as much square footage, or something where you would still get, maybe additional units. I mean, it's just a thought. And the other part of it is, when we considered this last year or a couple, 18 months ago, whatever it was, it was based on a competitive look at the site with other proposals. And the thing that I really liked about your proposal was the fact that you're considering the sort of community of the spaces. So the way that you've got your new design, I think I could support, because you've still got a series of sort of smaller grouped buildings that could still have some independent character but work as a whole. So I'm not completely opposed to the idea, I know some others here on the Plan Commission might be, but I do think if you had still retained the character and had some owner occupancy and kept those numbers at a decent ratio, I think that would be beneficial to your, a new proposal.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, this was to provide them input. We move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Okay, that is the item number 6 is the specific implementation plan modification for lighting plan. This is the Conservancy Bend Residences 21, 24, 13 and 24, 21 Parliamentary Street. Mark?
Yep. So we've received a request for the lighting scheme that you see on your screen, which is based on an image from downtown, from Middleton Clinic. So the request from the developer is to allow some up and down lighting, which is sort of direct and indirect lighting on the building, similar to what is on Middleton Center. And Jake probably would like to address Jake Buns would like to address the commission on this matter.
Jake?
My name is Jake Buns, T-Wall Enterprises. So basically, we kind of look at Middleton Center as a great development. It looks good. It's visually pleasing. And the one thing that pops on Middleton Center is the up-down lighting component of it. So what we're proposing is having similar lighting on Conservancy Bend with the direct, indirect up-down lighting, but we will keep it confined to the Parliamentary Street side, the Lee Street, and Clark Street side of the building. And I know, Mark, you brought up concern with the lighting on the Conservancy side, and I just want to clarify that the lighting is, nothing's changing on the Conservancy side, it's just the small fixtures over the doors. So yeah, it's more of a visual thing. We think it looks great, and I'm sure you guys agree looking at Middleton Center at night. So that's what we're proposing. It's just that direct, indirect lighting.
So a few years ago, there were people really concerned about the light pollution. They like to look in the stars and in the sky. So do you have some thoughts that how much would it cause the light pollution here?
So the lighting stays on the facade of the building, and actually the photometric plans are exactly the same as they were before without the direct, indirect lighting. And yeah, it's exactly the same. Nothing's changing. It's just a matter of taking the cap off the top of the fixture and letting it kind of project onto the facade. And it's not, if you go and look at night, it's not a huge footprint on the side of the building. So it's very similar to what you would have seen otherwise.
Okay. Okay, questions?
And Mayor, I wanted to add
yes.
some staff add a comment that we received an email this afternoon from Sam Shannon. Did all the commission members receive that? Did you receive it?
No, I haven't seen it. Maybe I did.
Yes.
Okay, so, and I haven't had a chance, I was out of the building for part of this afternoon, so I'll quickly summarize it here. So it was from the co-president of the Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy Board, hearing concerns from Friends members about the request before the commission this evening to change the outdoor lighting code for Conservancy Bend's Residences project adjacent to the Conservancy. They're writing, the concerns our members have expressed and to note we share their concerns. And then she cites our ordinance, having full cutoff fixtures. This type of lighting may be advantageous in a commercial setting, and the center of downtown, but it is inappropriate, disadvantageous on the edge of the Conservancy. A particular concern is the potential negative impact this uplighting could have on the nocturnal bird and animal populations in the Conservancy. We feel this potential, there it's on the screen now. Thank you, Abby. So, she's concerned, the Friends are concerned that this will affect bird and animal populations in the Conservancy. So that's a summary of their concern.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that lighting, this up-down lighting isn't on the Conservancy side. We made sure to keep that lighting just what was necessary there. And
Okay, anybody else would like to share their comments at this time?
Yes, I
Tyson
would.
has her hand raised.
Okay, who does? Abby, who was Kitty?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, Kitty, go ahead.
Okay, the point I wanted to make was that around the country in various locations, there have been building codes that have been introduced that make it illegal to have uplighting. And the point of that was typically, from what I understood, was that we had developed some pretty serious conflicts with airport visual ability. And as a result, it became illegal in a lot of cities. I don't know, I gather it's not illegal here. I haven't digested the current codes enough to know that, but we're pretty close to Middleton Airport. I would think those guys would be pretty concerned about, you know, trying to fly in at night with uplighting. And oddly enough, the one, well, I don't need to get into it, but the one and only business that was allowed to have uplighting in a lot of those locations were car dealerships. All that aside, it's something that's not even legal in various places. So just a point.
Yeah, it certainly looks nice, but I guess that does have pluses and minuses. Any other questions or comments? Abby, does have anybody else?
Yeah.
His hand raised.
If you can put back up there's the picture on your screen, Abby. If you remove the cap on a light fixture so it shines up, does it, and you have the building roof on this picture extends past the side of the building, is the light completely contained in that roof overhang?
No. Yeah, yes it is.
No.
In the soffit.
And Kitty's an architect and she's saying no, so
It diffuses outward.
Sure it does.
yeah. Would you be open to some compromise of, I could conceivably see it acceptable on the building labeled A1 in the plan, the multifamily, which is closer to Parmenter Street, closer to Lee Street, and not that close to the Conservancy. But I think on the sides of the two townhouses, T1 and T3, that's getting a little close. And I'm not sure that the residents who live in townhouses would want uplighting anyway.
Yeah, we would surely consider that. Like I said, I think we would. It looks great in the multifamily here at Middleton Center, and we think it would look great on the multifamily there at Conservancy Bend.
Okay, and
so I'm still not sure I see the need for it though.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, you lost me for a second. Where did you say? Where was your compromise, Kurt?
I was suggesting on the three sides of the multifamily, the building labeled A1, but not on the townhouses, T1 and T3.
I just don't see it as necessary.
Yeah, I still don't see it as necessary.
Okay.
Downlighting can be beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor, this is Mike Slavish. I had just a quick question for the developer. You know, certainly I think we all agree that the uplighting does look nice against the building, but there's the concern about light pollution. Any thought about I know this adds an additional light fixture at every column or pilaster, but what about 2 downlights, one at the point and one under the eave up above, where there is arguably no uplight, all the lights are shining down, but it does provide a similar lighting pattern against the siding.
Yeah, that would look good too. We could consider that as well. I mean, if the light would be spot as it would be with the indirect lighting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not shining up that way. I mean, I throw that out as a possible compromise for the discussion we're having.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anybody else has a hand raised? I don't see it. Okay, well, is this mainly for input or you need a recommendation? I guess it's too close to the Nature Conservancy, and I'm concerned about the light pollution as a lot of other people too. So it certainly looks nice, but if you could find some way to actually having light going downwards, that would be fine. Okay, any other questions or comments?
Do you need a motion?
Yes. For you is the request for an SIP modification.
So I would move to deny the request for the SIP modification. But let the record reflect that the suggestions that Slavish made and others for possible compromise, but they'd have to come back with a new plan that shows that.
Okay, I second it.
Kitty was going to say something.
Oh, okay, all right.
I seconded it.
Okay, fine. Kitty seconded it. So, okay, so all right. Now, any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to deny this SIP modification for lighting, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Well, you got the message. All right. Yeah, too close to Nature Conservancy. Okay, the last item on the evening. So this is the concept discussion for Pleasant View Park Apartments, 1551 Pleasant View Road. So Abby, Mark.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Abby? Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I will not be taking part in discussion or voting on this item.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. You're letting us know. Okay, Abby.
Yep, so you're very familiar with this project. The council recently denied the request for rezoning for a 14-story building with 210 units. And there are several representatives of the development team on the call right now, and they would like to open up a discussion with the Plan Commission to try to hone in on the level of intensity that would be preferred for this site. And in order to start the discussion, they have submitted plans for a 12-story building with 187 units of housing. They would scale back the underground parking to 2 levels rather than 2.5 or 3. And I know that the mayor met on site last week with the developer as well as representatives of PPD nearby to address several concerns about blasting and about the stability of the cliff face on the PPD property. And my understanding of that meeting, I was not present at that meeting, but my understanding is that it was a very good meeting. There was a good discussion. From what I've heard, PPD still has significant concerns with the development, and I think that extends also to the owner of their property, which is Capital IRA, and they also have representatives on the call this evening. And I've told them that we don't have a public hearing notice for this evening, but that if this development proceeds forward with a new GIP submittal, we would hold a public hearing and have, we would go through the same rezoning application and hearing process again. But I think what the development team is hoping for is more of a conversation tonight.
Okay, so we start with the development team, and we will provide PPD, some opportunity to make a comment so that everybody knows where the issues are. So let's start with the development team.
Good evening. This is Jim Stoppel with Madison Property Management and part of the development team. I appreciate your time again this evening, Mayor Barr, city staff, and thank you for all your efforts. At the last Plan Commission meeting, some of the members expressed concern about blasting and height. Jeff wanted to thoroughly vet the blasting questions PPD had, so he employed the services of geotechnical engineer Travis David Saver with Barr Engineering out of Duluth, Minnesota. Travis is one of the best geotechnical engineers we could find in the Midwest. In the morning of May 20th, on Wednesday, Travis thoroughly inspected the wall and the hill above the wall. Then Thursday afternoon, Travis met with members of the development team, John, Darren, Alec from PPD, Larry from IRA Capital, owner of the land and the building occupied by PPD, Spencer Christensen of Veerbecker, Mike Schultz, president of CGC Engineering, and Mayor Barr to again thoroughly inspect the wall behind PPD and discuss the hill above. Mike Schultz of CGC brought documentation to the meeting from a 1997, which indicated that the rock wall was stable at that time, but the spalling from the wall would continue on a consistent basis and that the rock wall should be maintained consistently to minimize the spalling and erosion of the sandstone base. Unfortunately, it appears that no maintenance has been done on the rock wall since 1997, except for possibly removing spalling rock from the trench at the base of the wall. During that meeting, Travis concluded that no matter whether Jeff did any blasting or not, the rock wall behind PPD needed significant deferred maintenance and that the wall would continue to have spalling with or without blasting. It was also noted that IRA Capital that owns the land and the building occupied by PPD does own the rock wall and about 80 to 100 feet of the hill above the rock wall. Travis and Mike Schultz noted that the rock wall is composed of a sandstone base, which erodes much more easily than the rock above it, and there are areas where the sandstone base is eroded, leaving spots where the rock wall overhangs the sandstone base by approximately 5 feet. Both Travis and Mike indicated that the rock wall needs to be raked on a consistent basis to remove the loose rock, and probably some type of reinforcement should be installed at the sandstone base. The results of this meeting were thoroughly reviewed by Jeff Strobel. He understands that it would still be safe to blast for this project. However, Jeff felt that in order to totally remove the blasting issue from the minds of PPD and the city of Middleton and planning staff, Jeff has decided he will not blast for this project. In spite of the fact that Jeff will not be blasting, Jeff has agreed to remove the rock from the base of the rock wall prior to his construction, monitor the rock wall during construction, and remove any spalling rock from the base of the wall after construction. Blasting and height concerned some members of Plan Commission at the last meeting. Jeff wanted to eliminate both issues. Therefore, Jeff has agreed to drop the height of the building from 14 stories to 12 stories, softening the view shed and reducing the visible areas of the building down to 5 stories or less for most areas in the city of Middleton. This evening, architect Joseph Lee will provide you with an overview of the project again. Then engineer Wade Wise will provide you with a stormwater management summary. And then arborist Bruce Allison will provide you with a summary of the minimal effect the project will have on the trees and the conservancy. The development team hopes that we have heard Plan Commission correctly and that these changes are exactly what you're looking for. We will all be available for questions after the full presentation has been made. So Joe, I will let you take over from here.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Jim. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Thanks, Abby.
And everybody here is
Abby
okay?
gave me a thumbs up, so I'm assuming that's the case. Can I share my screen, Abby, or how do you want to do that?
Sure, no problem. I just stopped share.
Okay. So let me share that. Oh, wrong screen. Apologize. There we go. There we go. Can everybody see Pleasant View Park aerial?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody's seen this before, so I'm not going to go, in the interest of time, go over it in great detail other than tell you what's different. And the two different things, one Jim already went over, which is the blasting, which we heard was a major concern. And again, our client, Jeff Straubel, has said that he will not do blasting at this time. And the other thing we heard was the height of the building. We were at a 14-story building, and there was discussion by this body that 12 stories may be more appropriate. So we wanted to show you what that would look like here. So the footprint of the building does not change. I'm going to blow this up a bit. Footprint, the site plan of the building does not change at all. As you can see, it's the same as before, oriented at a roughly 45-degree angle to the north-south. Exact same footprint, exact same building area in terms of the footprint of the building. Again, that's the communication tower you've seen before. This top line here is that line of that communication tower, which was the datum that we were held to previously. We have dropped the height of the building 2 floors. So we are now 20 feet shorter than we were before. Again, we will have 2 levels of parking, significantly similar to what we had before. We have omitted the 3rd level of underground parking, and we would have 12 levels of residential units above. If you want to go into any great detail on these, I'm happy to go back, but in interest of time, you've seen those before, so I won't go into any great detail on that. Again, the height has been dropped by 2 stories. We maintain the same architectural character and aesthetic, still an aesthetically building at 12 stories as it was at 13. You can see these straight on elevations here. Now we get into some of the 3-dimensional views where we can really tell the difference. We have 8 views similar to what we had before. I'll go through all 8 of them, and we can go back if you want to see any in greater length. So the first one, what we did here is we are showing the 14-story, our previous proposal, and our updated proposal. So in each slide, you'll see two renderings. So 14-story versus 12 in this first view from Market Street. The second view is here from Middleton Station, or Greenway Station. 14-story building and 12-story building. The third view is at the intersection here. As you can see where my mouse is. That's the 14-story. You can see this is a pretty dramatic change to 12. As you can see, maybe for sure the top floor, but maybe the second floor as well over those trees. As we go up the hill, you'll see view number 4 next. View number 4, and again, similar to last time, this is the 14-story, but similar to last time, as we get to the building, the perspective changes, so we see less of the building. So again, at 12 stories, you can see the building start to peek out a little bit out above the trees. View 5, you can see the building here in 14 stories. At 12 stories, you have to really look for it, even when the leaves have fallen from the trees. So imagine this when there's leaves on the trees, you wouldn't be able to see it. View 6 right here, as we're continuing up the hill. This is the 14-story option that you've seen in the past, and the 12-story, which you can see through the trees a bit. And again, this is without any leaves. Once there's leaves on there, you wouldn't see that building at all. But even in the months where there are no leaves, that building really blends into that landscape nicely. View 7 on Pleasant View, looking north. Again, here's the building, the 14-story proposed, and our updated proposal at 12. And then the last view, view 8, is from the clubhouse in Pleasant View Golf Course. And you can see the red arrow is the direct view to the Capitol. Our building is to the right, or the north of that. And if I move everybody's camera, this is that view, right from the clubhouse patio. You can see the communication tower on the left, the extent of the lake view there. And then on the right, you can see that we circled the Capitol so you can get some context there. As you look here, this is that 14-story proposal from before. Again, even at 14 stories, this was not blocking any significant view from the golf course. It's relatively the same view, although shorter at 12 stories. So architecturally, you can see there is some significant difference from 14 to 12, especially as you're going up the hill and getting close to that perspective of the building. That's all I have architecturally. Jim, I don't know if Wade was going to go into any changes with the wall, if anything, for civil.
I had put him on the agenda just in case he wished to address it. I think the stormwater management was going to reduce the stormwater going south, and all of the stormwater from the building then north of the building was going to go down Pleasant View Road in a rickrack fashion until the road was totally redone. And Wade, if you have any issues, please add.
You bet. Thanks, Jim. Kind of echoing the way Joe kicked off the conversation as it relates to stormwater, really the concept is all still the same. And it is consistent with what we have been through in coordination with Water Resources, City Engineering, ultimately approval from Water Resources. We are going to line stormwater facilities that front the Conservancy lands on the east to prevent infiltration and negative impact to the Conservancy. We are going to discharge to the northwest corner, as Jim stated, to connect into a future storm sewer system with Pleasant View Road. In the interim, we'll be rebuilding a stretch of the swale that heads north on Pleasant View Road to ensure safe conveyance in the interim. And also importantly, then we are reducing the watershed area that flows to the south to eliminate concerns of the residents to the southeast of this project, again, in concert with what we had discussed before. So as much as anything, here to answer any specifics as relates to stormwater, but really consistent with our previous approvals.
Okay, now it's open to questions or comments, first from the Plan Commission.
Mayor?
Yep. Yes, Kurt.
So for Joe Lee, on the height, I'm looking at the cross section you showed. I think it was the east elevation. You show that the 12th floor, the top of the roof is at 222 feet. Is that right? And the tower is at 253 feet.
Let me go back here. Faster just to go to this and
Yeah, that one will do.
There you go.
What, so the first proposal, the 14 stories, was how high?
20 feet higher than that.
Okay, 20 feet higher. And what's the reduction in the number of units from the first proposal?
That's one thing I don't have in my slides, but I believe from memory, Abby just mentioned it, 187 or 189. I can't recall off the top of my
I
head.
think you went from 210 to 187.
187, yeah.
And how many? I know you show fewer stories of parking, but I didn't see on the application how many total parking spaces. Oh wait, it's 365. So 315 that would be structured. So we've been approving apartments, usually closer to the downtown area that have bus service, where we've reduced the parking almost to even one stall per unit. So I guess I would ask, I realize this is not close to any bus line, so it's serving a more market clientele that would need probably 2 cars per building, but have you considered reducing the parking provided as a way to kind of lower the height of the building?
Joe, maybe this is Jim Stoppel. Maybe I could possibly chime in.
Sure.
And Kurt, it's a good question. You have 303 bedrooms. And so there are some 1 bedrooms that will have 2 people. There are 3 bedrooms that may only have 2 people. But our greatest goal is to make sure that parking is not an inhibition for somebody to want to live here. As well as you have 3 bedrooms that have a bedroom for the occupant, a guest bedroom, and an office. And so our goal, or Jeff's goal actually, at a later date, because it came up at a very late discussion, would be to actually want to go back to another half level of parking. But it's a topic to be discussed and to be addressed, because again, parking is such an integral part of, can I live here? And if I don't have enough parking, it just has a dramatic negative impact on the project and the guests that come there.
Right, and it's not really close to anything where overflow parking could go on the street or in a neighborhood.
You're absolutely correct, Kurt.
I guess the other question I had. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So as I understand the economics of this project, you really need to be tall enough to both cover the cost of the structured parking and going up, but also you want to be tall enough so that your top floor or 2 really get those premium rents because of a view of the Capitol. So I guess the question is, which floors would have a view of the Capitol?
Well, as you can see from the images that we sent, the ones that are above the tree line would definitely have the views. There might be some below there that would have oblique views or views through the different trees. We couldn't guarantee that at that point until the building's built. But definitely the top 2 floors.
Kurt, my personal belief is it will be slightly higher than that. I think the tree level is somewhere in the 70-foot range in that area. And so I'm hoping we're going to get views, whether it's views of the farm countryside to the northwest, views of the lake and the Capitol to the southeast. I think the views are going to be spectacular. And our 12th floor, unfortunately, does not provide for all total housing. We have some mechanicals there. We have a social room there. And so that's not a full floor set like those below. So yes, the economics of it require as much height as we can get. With what we are trying to put into this project and the quality we're trying to put into this project, we're on the teeter's edge at this particular moment, rate of return wise. Jeff just has a commitment of this land and what he would like to do for the city of Middleton. When you look at just to veer a little bit, the tax assessment of this project will probably be equal to the full tax assessment of all of the PPD project.
So I appreciate what you've done in terms of lowering the building height, and I know what that does for the project economics. I think the issue of blasting is dealt with, right? The third issue was about the sewer line and the conservancy, and that's really outside of our scope of authority as the plan commission. I'm looking at the view even of the 12-story from the golf course and from the road, and it still feels like you're going to have a tough sell with council in terms of the height. But we do appreciate your willingness to lower the height. I'll let others speak. I'm still uncomfortable with the height though.
Okay, so the other folks, I have expressed my opinion to Jim very, very clearly. So we'll maybe speak later too, but let's the others speak. So. Does anybody has their hands up, Abby?
No one that I can see, no.
Hello, this is John Dennison.
Okay,
I did raise my hand.
Dennison. Okay, go ahead, John.
So this is the first I've heard, Jim, about the change from blasting to no blasting. What is the technique that will be used then?
It is mechanical. It's identical to Stevens built a project for me, John, that I think I talked about at one of the previous meetings called Venture on Seagull Road. And we sat the project, the basement ended up being 3.5 stories deep. It sat the north side of the basement wall, sat about 20 feet from the wall of Weston Place Condominium Association. And in the process of putting the basement in, one of their air handling tunnels actually caved, but they picked rock for the lowest levels of parking for that project, and it was exactly adjacent to Middleton, to the Condominium Association, with no issues whatsoever.
Mike Slavish has raised his hand.
Yeah,
Mike.
Just a quick comment. I think I was one of 2 planning commission members last time that voted for this when it was 14 stories. From a design standpoint, I thought that worked. I think the 12-story structure also works. The concern then, and that you seem to have addressed, is the blasting. So the fact that you're eliminating that and the design is still relatively consistent, maybe even better with the lower profile, I support the project.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?
Jen Murray has raised her hand.
Jennifer?
Hi, this is Jen. I also support the project. I think that the concerns have been addressed, and I think this looks good. I think it looks great.
Okay, anyone else?
John Dennison and Kitty Tyson both have their hand raised.
Okay, Kitty Tyson and then John Dennison, please.
Okay, just as Mike Slavish and Jen said, I supported it before and I still support it. It still looks great.
Okay, John Dennison.
Active vibration on our business and disruption to our business for an extended period of time. So I certainly would want to know more detail about what we could expect for vibration, with this alternate technique.
Thank you, John. So, yeah, I guess.
No, I was going to ask Mayor if you could reflect on your conversation with PPD and with Jim for the rest of us.
Yeah, I talked to Jim in detail. Number one, I was at that meeting, and I actually went to the site today, even though it was muddy. I walked all over it, and I looked at where the fence is. When you go to the western part of it, maybe the fence is fence, and then where the hill drops is quite a bit, maybe more than 100 feet. When it goes to the east, and the distance while you're at the bottom, you couldn't really measure it, but I could see while I was standing at the PPD, next to the PPD building where that fence was. So it was much more closer to the end where the drop down is. I don't know what it was, 50 feet, 60 feet, or 70 feet. So as it goes toward the east, it comes much closer to the edge than to the west. So I could see that. So, and I did ask Jim that if we could look at the original proposal of 7-story, which they had proposed. And so he did say that why 7-story isn't feasible now. The third thing for me was that, if it could be, this project could go forward at the same time when the road is being built, it will have a least amount of disruption to PPD. PPD is right now among the top 10 employers in the Dane County, and it is a very important biotechnology company for the county per se. They have twice, at the end of the year, if they say what they do, that they will have 2,000 employees, it will be twice the size of Promega, and it will be bigger than Covance, which is now more like 1,600 now. And the biggest biotech company is now Exact Sciences, which was more close to 2,400. So it will be the second, if they go up to 2,000, the second largest company. So it's very important to the city, it's very important to the county, and keeping them here is very important to me. So I think if we could find some compromise of some sort, let's say, do it when the road is happening, I will be, willing to go with it. And those are some of the things which I shared with them.
So just to understand, Mayor, your main concern was the impact on PPD, not the height relative to other buildings in the area.
So I am still concerned about the height. I was originally concerned about the height as well, so it's that's why I would like to see even 7-story, so that it should just fit in there. I mean, this building, the tallest building at one of the highest places, not the highest, but one of the rather higher places. So it's, it is my concern. I'm with you on that one.
So I guess to follow up with Joe, the architect, in terms of the site plan, how much of the area that you guys control is taken up with building material, and how much is green space? Because I guess what I'm hinting at is there a way, I hate to give up green space, but is there a way to lower the height of the building, get the same number of units by making the footprint of the building bigger, so that the height is lower? Or is that not feasible?
Yeah, that's the exercise we went into when we were first brought into this project, and we explained months and months ago, and I think that's what Jim also explained at a previous plan commission meeting and with the mayor. So you're exactly right. You lower the height and you're spreading out the footprint, and you're reducing green space, and you have grading issues with stormwater management and there's a whole domino effect on the development. Not to mention the land for the path and the new road. So this is really the concept that we brought forth at 14 stories was really the most feasible project for the development. And as Jim said before, taking two floors off of it and then a floor of parking is really put that into question even. So this is what we would want to do for the benefit of the site and the project.
Joe, could I chime in and Kurt try to address that as well?
Sure.
We lose some space. Well, it looks like a big parcel, but we lose space with what the road's taking. Plus, we lose space with the bicycle path that goes through. So, in order to try to be consistent with that, that's part of our problem. Yes, we did have a small lower height buildings put together at one time with another architect, and however, we didn't realize, or he didn't realize, that the bicycle path had a deed to it. So we had buildings on top of the bicycle path, and it really consumed the whole parcel. And I want to just touch one other issue that Mayor talked about, which I appreciate that he went out and walked it again. As you look at this picture, and you take due north of where the building is literally about the property line is, and Joe, I don't know if you can show the property line or if you can show where the picture is that has the 133 feet from the corner of our building to the property line.
You can actually see the fence in that picture. It's more or less visible.
Yeah, if you go back to that one, but what you have, Mayor Barr, is that the fence you're looking at is really on the conservancy land that the city owns, and it's not on Jeff's land. So the building goes right up to the property line. You can see where our property line is on the top right-hand side, where the entrance to the garages go, is our property line. And then I don't know if, Joe, you can go back to the one that that you were just at briefly before. So you see where the property line is on the northwest side of this one. And now if we go back to the other one right there, you will see.
So Jim, the property line is beyond, that's the north of the fence then?
Now the fence you're seeing, where you see the bicycle path coming in on the top right corner, the fence you're seeing is, I think, or looking at, is the overlook. That's
Oh, no, I went right close to that driveway, right coming off the Pleasant View Road, and that's where I started looking, and then I walked in the mud down there. So
yes,
it's starting right in the corner on the northwest corner. Yes, that's where I started. So.
Okay, and in that northwest corner, it's about 20 feet from, well, the fence is on our property line, and so that whole area from there north belongs to IRA Capital, and so it's in that area close to probably 80 feet there, and 100 feet on the east side. And then when you get down where the overlook is, there's a fence there as well. And that's really where the sandstone erosion has taken place the most, is near the overlook, and then coming back to the west, probably 100 feet or so.
Yeah, that's where a lot of erosion. Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
So, yeah, when you come to the east side, it's well landscaped, and there is much less of it.
Yes, no question. Kurt, I'm sorry I interrupted, and if I answered your question, hopefully, or any other questions, I'm happy to try to address.
You got to the sense of my question. So I appreciate what Mike Slavish and Kitty Tyson said. They have a good eye for design. I think I'm persuadable on the height, but I'm still pretty nervous about it because it feels like we're shoehorning in too big of a building on a small parcel that is not really close to anything other than the golf course and Pleasant View Road. And I guess so I'd ask Mark Opitz if he's still awake. We can only see your bald spot, Mark. We only see your bald spot, which is your best part. What's the nearest bus stop to this? Because we generally like density to support transit. This would be pretty auto dependent.
Yes, Mark.
There's a bus stop on Greenway Boulevard by the condos and apartments at the bottom of the hill. So it's not, I mean, the best way to get there would be to take the path basically because, well, currently because there's no, but eventually there'll be a sidewalk along Pleasant View Road. So that would probably be the most direct route eventually, but it would be at least it'd be over a 5-minute walk, I'm sure, but not much over.
And I have talked to the mayor of Madison. So the plan is, so whenever, not in phase 1, maybe phase 2 or phase 3, when the BRT does come, it will come along Middle Point Road and then to the Pleasant View Road. So that was her thought, but a lot has to happen for that really happen. So.
And as we think about the long-term future of that area, it's a real high density of employment. Finding a way to expand transit there as opposed to just having everyone drive all the time. But one of the things that makes transit viable out there is to have more residences, not just businesses. So, but,
and I can talk to the Madison mayor again and see if they have made any further progress or if there's more information which they can share us about that rapid bus transit. So,
but I just wanted to say to Jim, it's ultimately you're going to have to convince council, and so it sounds like you have the votes to pass plan commission now at 12 stories, but I still don't know if that would pass muster with council.
Kurt, I appreciate your comments and respect them, of course. Our goal was to try to, and Jeff was willing to do anything he could to eliminate the objections that we heard at the last plan commission meeting, which included blasting and height, and the 12 stories had been bantered about. Our goal was to accomplish that. Our goal is to do whatever we can here. We think it's going to be a benefit for everyone. The rapid transit, it would be wonderful if it would stop at the top of the hill once this is built. But we think the win is far greater than the perhaps drawbacks.
And I'll just close with one procedural question to Mark and Abby. In the staff comments, it says that you need a new rezoning application, which is correct, right? Because it was denied. But why do we need a new public hearing? If we've had a public hearing at 14 stories, why do we need a new public hearing at 12?
Our ordinance doesn't specifically state that a new public hearing is required, but that was our interpretation just based on the denial. The denial of the GIP at council. We felt that if we were essentially restarting the rezoning process with a new GIP application, that it would make sense to require a public hearing as well, and to also notify the neighbors who took a great interest in the project and might not be aware of it otherwise.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So this was to provide the input to Jim and his group. So Jim, do you need any more input, or you think you are okay with this now?
I appreciate the input. I guess, is there planned to be a vote tonight, or is this just a discussionary meeting and to come back again?
This was just for discussion with the applicant.
Okay, my misunderstanding.
Okay.
And just
so.
Our ordinance requires that we have a majority vote of all the members of the commission to take any action. That's what our ordinance says about plan commission. So the question becomes whether we have 6 members or 7. Since our ordinance requires that the chair of parks is automatically a member, I'm assuming that since Leaf has resigned, a new chair has been appointed, and that person should be brought up to speed because with Dan's recusal, that leaves us with only 5 voting members right now. And it's unclear from our ordinance whether a 3-2 vote would be acceptable because it requires a majority of the members. Just something for staff to flag with the city attorney.
Yeah, and I don't think that Parks has elected a new chair yet. I'm not sure that they've had a meeting yet. And I think that they would probably hold off until the new appointments are confirmed by the council before their newly formed body would elect a chair. But that's a very good point that you flagged. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, so any other questions or comments, or we need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, need a second. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Okay, all right, we are adjourned. Thank you and have a great evening. I appreciate that.
Thanks, everybody.